Grand Theft Auto 6 is the first Grand Theft Auto in 25 years that wasn't written by the people who wrote Grand Theft Auto. And I don't mean that as a doom take, I mean it literally. The two men most responsible for how these games actually sound both walked out in 2020, and neither of them has touched 6. So this is who left, why they left, what they've been doing since, and the part that genuinely surprised me when I went looking, which is where most of them ended up. Start with Dan Houser because he's the big one. He co-founded Rockstar. He wrote or co-wrote every Grand Theft Auto from 3 onwards, plus both Red Dead's and Bully and Max Payne 3. If you can quote a line from these games, there's a decent chance he wrote it. He left on the 11th of March 2020 after taking an extended break that started the spring before. And the reason is less dramatic than the internet decided it was. In his own words, GTA 5 and Red Dead 2 took so long to make that he didn't know if he had another one of those games in him. That's a man who's tired, not a man who was pushed. Second is Lazlow Jones, and if that name means nothing to you, the voice will. 20 years at Rockstar. He wrote and performed the radio, the talk stations, the adverts, the interviews, all of it. The satire that made Los Santos and Liberty City feel like real places with terrible media. He left in 2020 as well. And the reason there is genuinely sad, not corporate. His sister was diagnosed with terminal cancer a few weeks after Red Dead 2 launched. And it made him reassess what he was spending his life on. So that's 2 departures in 1 year. And neither of them is the story people tell. Nobody got fired. One was exhausted, and one had something far more important going on. And it's worth being specific about what those 2 actually did, because the writing is a vague thing to say you'll miss. GTA's humor has never really been in the plot. It's in the texture. It's the radio advert for a product that shouldn't exist. The news anchor who's clearly having a breakdown, the billboard you only notice on your 4th drive past it. That's a very particular kind of joke. And it's much harder than it looks. Satire that's actually funny about a real country. Written by people who clearly watched an enormous amount of terrible American television. You can't just brief that to somebody. Which is why the specific worry isn't whether GTA 6 has a good story. It's whether the world around the story still sounds like it's taking the mickey out of something real. The third one is where it does get messy, and that's Leslie Benzies. He was the lead developer on every GTA from 3 through 5, including online. Not the writer, the producer. The person who actually got these enormous things finished and out of the door. In 2014, Rockstar put him on what they called a sabbatical. He says he later found out it was a push-out, and in April 2016, he sued the company for $150 million in unpaid royalties. 12 of his 18 claims got thrown out in 2018. The whole thing settled confidentially in February 2019, with everyone paying their own legal costs. Which usually means nobody wanted to keep going. Now here's why any of this matters, rather than being gossip about people you've never met. Benzies left and started his own studio, Build a Rocket Boy, in 2018. Which means we got something you almost never get in this industry. A controlled experiment. Take the man who produced GTA 5, give him money and time, and see what comes out. What came out was MindsEye in June 2025. And it reviewed badly, not divisively. Badly, pretty much across the board, and the studio went through layoffs afterwards. I'm not saying that to dunk on anybody because making games is brutally hard and most of them don't work. I'm saying it because it's evidence. Whatever makes a Rockstar game, it didn't leave the building in one person's pocket. And this is the bit I didn't know before I started looking into it. Dan Houser started a company called Absurd Ventures in February 2021. Games, television, comics, audio, new worlds rather than new Grand Thefts, and Lazlow works there now. The 2 of them are making things together again. So the writing team didn't scatter. It reassembled. It just reassembled at a company that isn't Rockstar, and whatever they make next, it won't have GTA on the box. And here's the detail I keep turning over. Absurd Ventures hasn't released a game. What they've put out is a comic. American Caper, 12 issues with Dark Horse, first one on the 12th of November last year, about 2 families falling apart in a small town in Wyoming. Before that, a novel adapted from an audio series they'd made. They've since turned the whole thing into a proper publishing imprint that takes fiction and memoirs and plays from writers who've got nothing to do with games at all. So the man who spent 25 years writing the most successful entertainment product on the planet left and went and started a comics label. He didn't go and build a rival open world with a different name on it, which is what basically everybody expected. That reads to me like somebody who was tired of the thing itself rather than tired of the company. And if that's right, it tells you something about what those games cost to make that no interview ever will. There's one more thing about Benzies I should mention, and I'm going to be careful with it because it's serious and it's contested. He was named in the recently released Epstein files in a statement from a survivor, Sarah Ransom, who alleges he sexually assaulted her. His lawyers have called those allegations categorically false and, their words, absurd fabrications. His studio says the relationship was consensual and that he has never met Jeffrey Epstein, never visited his island, his properties, or traveled on his plane. And the documents themselves don't allege any direct connection to Epstein. No island, no flight logs. He's currently on leave from the studio, which the company says is unrelated to any of this. That's the whole of what's actually been reported. It's denied, and I'm not going to speculate past it. So, does any of this mean GTA 6 is in trouble? Honestly, probably not, and here's the argument against my own video. Red Dead Redemption 2 came out in 2018 when Hauser was already halfway out of the door and about to take that break. And a lot of people think it's the best written thing Rockstar has ever made. Rockstar isn't 3 guys, it's thousands of people across a dozen studios. And the writer's room that produced that game is largely still there. The house style survived losing its most famous names once already. Sam Hauser, Dan's brother, the other co-founder, is still president and still running the place. That's the person who's been at the top of every Grand Theft Auto ever made, and he hasn't gone anywhere. And there's a decent argument that studios like this are systems rather than individuals. The people who made the first Grand Theft Auto weren't the ones who made San Andreas either. And San Andreas turned out alright. And Dan Hauser himself has said he thinks GTA 6's story is going to be great, while also confirming he had absolutely nothing to do with it, which is either genuine confidence or extremely good manners. And I lean towards the first one. What I actually think we lose is the radio. The dialogue will be fine. Rockstar has plenty of good writers. But Lazlow's talk stations were a specific, weird, deeply personal kind of funny, and that's the hardest thing on earth to hire for. So when the extended look drops on the 27th and everybody's freeze-framing the map looking for petrol stations, I'll be listening to the adverts instead. That's where you find out whether the voice came through, and it takes about 10 seconds to know. If the radio's still funny, none of this mattered and I'll happily say so. If it's just music with a station name over it, then we'll know exactly what walked out of that building in 2020. Every date and quote in this one is sourced and linked below. If I've got something wrong, tell me and I'll correct it on screen.